Today we're going to go inside a very famous chord progression that uses 4 chords from the major scale. It's 1, 6, 2, 5. This chord progression can appear in jazz standards, in the middle of longer chord progressions, also in blues forms as a turnaround, but also it works as a loop, so you can have songs that only use these 4 chords repeated over and over. I actually created a playlist for you with songs that only use these 4 chords. It's in the description of this video, but we'll get to that later. First, I want you to understand this chord progression, and then we're going to sing melody paths across these chords together. So this chord progression sounds like this. See what's the role of each chord inside the progression and what each chord does to our ear. The first chord is the 1 chord. This chord feels relaxed, feels like home because this is the tonal center. And imagine that instead of having the rest of the chords, we had a progression with only the 1 chord. There is no harmonic movement, there's nothing that's pushing us to go somewhere else. We feel like we could stay here all day, right? It's very flat. But now let's change the second part of the progression and add the 5 chord and see what the 5 chord does. Is very unresolved, it stands, and we feel like we couldn't finish here, right? We want to hear the 1 chord, and when we hear the 1 chord, we feel relaxed again. So now we have a very gentle and easy alternation between relaxation and tension, the 1 chord and the 5 chord. But it's not very bouncy, right? Because we spend a long time on each chord. So what if we want to add more steps to this? Let's add the 2 chord before the 5 chord in the 3rd measure and see what happens. So the 2 chord, what it's doing to our ear, is preparing the tension of the 5 chord. It's more subtle, right? We don't go right away from relaxation to tension, but we have an intermediate step. 1, 2. It feels a little suspended, right? And then the 5 chord comes and brings more tension. 1, 2, 5. And the 5 is bringing us back to the top. But now we have a progression that's very calm, it's very relaxed in the beginning. There's no much movement in the beginning because we stay in the 1 chord, but then all the movement happens towards the end. 2 and 5 to go back to 1. But what about adding more movement and more action to the first part of the chord progression as well, instead of just staying in the 1 chord? We're going to insert the 6 chord after the 1 chord. The 6 chord is a very common tonal center in Western music, as much as the 1 chord. In this case, the 6 chord is going to be just a passing chord, but it's not going to feel like it's pushing us to go somewhere else. It's going to feel like a gentle switch from relaxation to another kind of relaxation. So let's hear it in the context of the whole chord progression. 1, 6, 2, 5. 1, 6, 2, 5. You can see that we have harmonic movement in each one of the measures of the progression, and we actually never rest. It's an endless loop. The 1 chord feels relaxed just for a second, then the 6 chord brings a little flavor and a little bit of movement too. Then the 2 chord sets everything in motion to receive the tension of the 5 chord to go back to the top. And there we go again. This progression that we're studying today is very, very similar to another chord progression that's also very famous that we studied in my course Recognizing Chords by Ear. It's the 50s progression, 1, 6, 4, 5. So you see that the only difference between these 2 chord progressions is the 3rd measure, that instead of having the 2 minor chord, we have the 4 chord. But both the 4 and the 2 minor in this case have the same role, the same function in the chord progression. They prepare the tension before the 5 chord arrives. They feel suspended and they feel like they set the harmony in motion before the 5 chord. Let's hear the difference. 1, 6, 2, 5. 1, 6, 4, 5. And so there are even songs that sometimes people sing them with one chord progression or the other because they both work very well. For example, Heart and Soul, you can hear versions with 1, 6, 4, 5 and versions with 1, 6, 2, 5. Dun, 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 da, da. So as you see in this case, these two chords have a similar role, they have just different flavors. So now let's move on to practicing melody paths together to internalize this chord progression and connect our knowledge to our ear. One, one, 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 5. 3, 3, 4, 4, 3, 5, 6, 5, 5, 5, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 5, 5, 6, 5, 4, 5, 5, 6, 5, 4, 2. 1, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 5, 7, 6, 6, 5, 7, 6, 6, 7, 5, 6, 5, 4, 5, 5, 6, 5, 6, 5, 7, 6, 6, 5, 7, 6, 4, 5, 5, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 6, 5, 3, 5, 4, 2, 4, 3, 5, 6, 7, 7, 6, 6, 7, 5, 6, 5, 4, 5, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 4, 5, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2. If you want to keep studying this chord progression on your own, I propose two different things that you can do. The first one is go to IFR Jam Tracks Level 3, go to Lesson 8, and there you will find teaching content about this chord progression, you will find practice tips, and jam tracks in all 12 keys to practice over 1, 6 to 5. The other activity you can do is go use this playlist that I created for you, and only contains songs that use this chord progression 1, 6 to 5. So you can go listen to these songs and try to follow along the chord progression as you listen to the song. Don't pay attention so much to the melody and try to hear the chord changes with the guitar or the piano, wherever instrument is in the background, and also the bass. It's very important to follow what the bass is doing. Try to hear the 1, 6, 2, 5 in the bass. So go listen to these songs that are from different styles and different tempos and try to follow the chord changes. And if you want, you can also play along or sing along melody paths over these famous songs. It's very important that we hear these chord changes in the context of real music. I hope you enjoy very much this chord progression, and I'll see you in the next video with an exploration of the 6 dominant chords.